Right now on the flip side, we're going to talk about conflict. We brought in a real married couple who seem to be actually in a conflict right now. Episode 74, The Flip Side. Here we go. Hello and welcome to episode 74 of The Flip Side. We got kind of a unique situation here. First of all, we got a married couple on The Flip Side. We've got Tyler and Allie here, the Swaney parents to Lucy, who's now how old?
Almost 11 months.
Almost. You're going to have a year birthday here coming up in a couple weeks.
Next month, yeah.
Wow.
Coming up.
And we had kind of a unique weekend. Usually what we do on The Flip Side, if you're newer, is we kind of expand and explore more on the topic for this weekend. But we had Francis Chan at about 4 of our campuses, and we had an extra weekend of the What Happy Families Know at 3 of our campuses. So we're going to do something kind of different here. Before we get into it, let's get some coffee. We got our coffee expert.
Awesome.
I have to put in a cough drop.
She has to put in a cough drop.
That is
I'm
coming.
going to serve the
Coffee drop.
Look at this.
Nice. Hey!
Serena, sit down. Relax. Get a cough drop.
I am so excited.
But tell us, what in the world are we drinking here, Serena?
Yes. Well, these are beans from a place or a brand called Drink Coffee Do Stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it has rich
about
flavor
it.
notes of dark chocolate and caramel.
I
Awesome.
love those flavor notes, but I'm a little confused. Al, I thought you stopped drinking coffee.
Oh,
No, I just stopped.
I just poured her some. I didn't know.
No, you're fine. I thought you said you weren't going to do it for a little while.
Look, I appreciate your accountability, and I will 100% ask for it if I
That's
need it.
never happened.
Okay.
Why would you ask for my advice now if you've never done that before?
Are we having an
I
actual?
feel like could you just give us a minute?
Sorry, just the other day you said you were going to take a break. Like, were you just giving up?
We
for
are
Lent?
rolling, you
No,
guys,
I
we
just
are rolling.
spilled it on the carpet, and I thought maybe the best way to avoid spilling it is just not to have it.
Let's
it was
be honest, it wasn't
irrational.
spilled once, it
I-
spilled twice in 2 days. So we
Keeping record
still
of
gotta
wrongs.
clean
Where's
that.
that from before?
I've never heard of that verse in my
Okay,
life.
can I just say you two are known as the sweetest couple of
Nailed
Bayside.
it!
Did we do okay? Is that all right? I don't
It
know.
was a fake fight, yes. It was a fake. You didn't really believe that Allie Swaney and Tyler Swaney were actually having. You guys never actually fight, do you?
I almost fooled myself. I'm the most gullible person in the world. But if one person bought it, it was worth it.
So we're going to talk about conflict. We're going to talk conflict.
Hey, what a
That's me.
setup.
All sorts of relationships have conflict. Families have conflict. Marriages have conflict.
It's true.
And you guys just had a conflict. I was actually my idea, you guys, because when you're in Thrive School, we were talking about this exact topic, and I made Dina, who's the nicest person at Bayside, and Henry, the second nicest person, they faked a conflict, and we literally, right before the teaching, and we literally had students like bowing their head and praying for them, and they were like, one girl started crying.
Or
it was-
just melting in their chairs in awkwardness.
we probably caused 2 people to have a traffic accident. But you guys really do have conflicts, though.
We do.
What was your last fight on?
I honestly think it was the spilled coffee.
No, it was like 2 nights ago.
That wasn't a lie. Oh, who's keeping record of wrongs now? Let's hear it. What do you got?
No, I remember it because afterwards I debriefed with him and I said, I think we handled that very well.
Okay. Why is it I can imagine that so perfectly?
Yes.
How did you, what was the conflict on, and what were some of the things you
I'll
did to
remind
handle it?
Allie knows 3 things when we have conflict, right? With
Okay.
me, she has to be very sensitive in how she approaches conflict, has to be give positive affirmation, that's number 2. And then she has to reinforce that the conflict resolution is going well, just to make sure that I feel good about it.
Hey,
all the
you're
way
getting
through.
an A so far in conflict resolution.
Together.
By the way, okay, first of all, I am so impressed.
Thank you. Yeah.
Those are great rules. Say those 3 rules again.
I don't know if I remember.
Everyone should do those 3 rules. Okay, so first of all,
She was sensitive. Sensitive to how I need to hear it.
Yes,
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yep.
Everyone should do that rule.
That's right.
Okay, can I stop you on sensitive and do a thing I've learned?
Please.
Okay.
Couples come into Kelly and I, and they'll say, we're having a problem in our marriage, we had a big fight, we're still angry at each other. Okay, well, tell us about the fight. And he'll say, I said this to her, and she'll say, I said this to him. And we will both, Kelly and I will both And we both came from horrible conflict families where F-bombs and horrible things were said. And somehow we learned, don't do that. And I'm not even sure where we learned.
Yeah.
And I'll say, why did you say it that way? Why did you speak to your spouse that way? And they'll say some version of, and I've heard this many, many times, well, I've heard you got to get it all out. And I'm like, no, keep most of it in.
Wrong.
You don't.
Yes.
The Bible is really clear about you cannot be indulgent in your words. There is a place to be cathartic, and there's a place to get your emotions out.
Diary.
But in your anger, do not sin means you can be frustrated. You just can't say words to people, let alone people you love, that are insensitive, aggressive, mean, insulting, passive-aggressive, absolutist. So be sensitive.
Yeah.
That's a good rule. What was the second rule?
Affirming.
Oh, affirming. That's right. I need
Truly
positive
just
affirmation.
affirming.
Just 1, 2, 3.
Just
And I'm
different
good
ways
with
of
it.
saying that.
And I'm good with it.
I try really hard to say, just because we're having this conflict doesn't threaten all the other good things about our marriage.
Sorry, Curt, can you also hear her tone
No.
when she's talking right now? Because it's a little
Same way I talk to
condescending,
No, it's
but I try to take it.
So Henry and I used to play tennis together, and Henry's a way better tennis player than me. And if I ever got a good shot off, he'd go, "You're getting good."
That was so
And I would throw my racket at it. I'd be like, "Shut up!" Yes, no.
Tell me that.
Okay, but
Like a baby taking
affirmation,
its first
affirmation, and then there was one other one.
Positive reinforcement, which is very...
This conflict is resulting in something good.
Yes, that's right. We're going places. We're getting better. Ty, last time I told you something, you actually listened to what I said, and you put a lot of intentionality and working on it, and that helps me.
You two are so fun to watch.
Do you want, the juicy details?
Yes, I do,
will give you-
absolutely.
Okay, here it goes.
I'm predicting this is going to be our most watched flip side ever. Let's go.
So here's what happened.
Yeah.
I get a text in the evening from a friend who says, I need a ride from the airport tomorrow. We had talked about it the week before, and I kind of forgot. And anyway, she said, I need a ride from the airport. I'll land around 9. So I say to Tyler at 9 a.m. So I say, hey, Ty, could you stay home with Lucy tomorrow morning before work so I can go pick up this friend? And he's like, I have a breakfast. And he responded that way because I have a tendency to not hear him talk about his schedule. It's a really hard thing for me to tune into.
Okay, I'm just saying, this is a generalization, and you have heard this before, but you guys are so reverse order.
So
Every
you're
You know how many
You
times
say this?
my wife has said, you tend to not think about my schedule and listen to my schedule.
Oh, anytime there's like a marriage seminar or something, Al and I just look at each other, wink, and high five and say it's pretty much flip-flop.
Yeah, well, yeah, we have
It's
certain
a perfect example
Yes.
of all of those things you hear in those teaching settings are generalizations, and you are responsible to apply them to your marriage.
That's right.
Okay, so keep going. So he's got an important meeting.
Yeah, so
You got a friend.
he reacts to the fact that I never listened to his schedule. So it's like a pile-on kind of thing, right? Like
Right.
And then
Right. It's not just that one incident.
yeah, it's
This
like
is a
that.
trend.
This is the fight we always have, you know? And then we go downhill from there.
Right.
So then
Games.
I respond by saying, you keep scheduling things before 9 a.m. when we both work full time, and that puts me on the hook for Lucy before work, which is our daughter. And it's sometimes hard to get ready with a 1-year-old, underneath 1 year old baby. And it's me most mornings. And then it became like a conversation about my pile-on, which was I work full-time and my mom full-time. And then we had this whole conversation about, you know, how we co-parent and also work full-time. And
I also think there's just an important detail we can't leave out, because what
Yes.
you're saying is totally true. It's late at night, right before
right,
we're
my
about to go to
prime
bed.
time is
I'm not a night owl.
Okay, so
It's
now
tough.
now you're playing by the gender rules better.
yeah.
Because
Then I just
Guy hates that because Guy is problem solver. Guy's self-worth, the lower problems, better person I am. We have no problems. I'm a perfect husband and a perfect man. We have lots of problems. I am somehow failing at life. So 11 p.m.
True.
I'm going to go to bed feeling like a loser because we have problems
It's
here.
a tough pill
we
to
don't go
swallow.
ahead.
The other thing that you guys are doing, the thing is, two weekends ago, we were talking about this idea. Any long-term relationship, could be a work relationship, could be roommates, especially marriage, you get into this cycle of what I call familiar fights. So it's this dance you do, and the dance is, why didn't you take out the garbage? Your mother hates me. You never listen to what I'm really saying.
It's a rhythm there.
You're like the musical.
No, it is a rhythm, and even though you know you're caught up in the dance and you're dancing it, you still dance it.
Yep.
And then the problem with that is that then it builds a cynicism of, this is what our marriage will always be. People start extrapolating out and going, this is my whole, and it's not true. It's not true. You make progress.
It's the lies we tell ourselves.
But there's a cynicism and a discouragement that kind of comes that can sit in there.
That's true.
So.
And it's tough to break out of, literally. I mean, we try as best we can, like you said, the verse says, right, do not let the sun go down on your anger. We try to resolve conflict as best we can before our heads hit the pillows.
Yes.
Knowing that we might need to follow up the next day, probably will. But when I was laying there, there was part of me, and maybe, this is a lot for some people to handle, but we like to cuddle before we go to bed and pray together every night. And there was part of me that just didn't want to do it in that moment. But I said, get yourself over there, put your arm around her, and pray together before you go to bed. And I felt better for it.
By the way, he likes to cuddle.
It's more of, that's something we had to come to agree on in marriage.
Also, a more traditional gender role.
A lot of these are
You guys are very
flipped.
complex.
It's fun.
My wife always says on the physical touch love language,
Yeah.
every man has that.
It's true.
So, okay, but let me ask this question. So, how did it then resolve?
Well, so I think for me, what I suggested was,
You come on the flip side.
what if we ask Curt to mediate and
Text Haley, can we please come on this week?
no, so it resolved, I think, by I said, look, maybe it would be better if I just knew that you were going to be gone these 3 mornings in a row, and you feel free to schedule those mornings so that you can be available the other 4 days. So we just create a fixed schedule, so I don't have to remember which mornings you're on and which mornings you're off, and you don't have to be upset that
You make
I don't
a
remember.
meta decision.
Yeah,
You make a
you make
bigger
a-
decision that helps mitigate the smaller decisions.
Yep.
Yeah, and I said if you're able to come in the morning one of those mornings, then I won't expect that. It will just be
Okay.
a treat.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there you go.
And I think part of it too is, we want to seek to
reason.
understand. I want to understand her side, and I want her lovingly to understand my side, and I don't want to explain it to her in a way that's belittling or condescending. So I want to say, hey babe, Monday through Thursday, those are, big work days. Typically I schedule meetings. I was getting breakfast with a leader, whatever it was. And if we want to adjust that moving forward, great, but we got to talk about that sooner than the night before. And so I said, next time it would be helpful, why don't we just say on Sunday nights, we're going to go through our whole week together. And maybe put it on paper so that we have visual, and that way there's nothing that's going to surprise us or take us off guard.
I want to hang an iPad with our calendar on in our kitchen. Because a lot of conflicts around the kitchen, and let me just give you some really bad news. The more children, the worse it gets. Super. This will seem like a really easy one, like 2 kids from now. So I want to read the passage because, like I said, only 3 of our campuses actually did an additional thing. And we did this Saturday night at the Granite Bay campus. James 4, one of my favorite passages. Here's what James says. I'm going to read the whole thing. What causes fights and quarrels among you? So James is asking the 50,000-foot conflict question. This is beautiful. He's asking the biggest question you can give, not what are you fighting about? Why did you fight last Tuesday? But here's the big one. Why do you fight at all? And here's what he says. Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? This is I've literally shown this to atheist friends and go, how do you explain the accuracy of the psychology of this 2,000 years before modern psychology? And then he says, you want something, but you don't get it. You kill and covet, but you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and fight. You don't have because you do not ask God. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your own pleasures. In verses 1 and 2 of chapter 4, James does a better job of synthesizing the real root of conflict and the ancillary impacts of it, the ancillary behaviors of it, than anything I think that's ever been written down. And there's 2 key phrases, and we're going to reverse engineer your conflict in these 2 phrases.
Cool.
the desires that battle within. This is insignificance and insecurity. Every room I walk into, I go, where am I at with the people in this room? What does Haley think about me? What does Tyler think about me? Where am I at with the people in this room? Because we all have insecurities in a sense of, am I significant enough? When you say, I've got important work, and you say, I've got important things, what you're both saying is, do you understand my significance? Do you understand how important this relationship is to me? Do you understand how important this meeting is to me? And what I see, like fast forward a couple decades, you'll see marriages where one of the partners will go, I know it's not godly, I know it's sin, but I don't care, I'm out. Because I cannot live in this state of insignificance.
Wow.
There's a significance imbalance that happens there. And James nails it. The desires that battle within.
Yeah.
And then you have this thing, you want something you do not get. It's simple, but it's so good. So let me ask you this question. Do you guys want to go to bed at the same time every night?
Nope.
No.
Who wants to go to bed first? Yes. No, I'm the same way. I'm like 10 o'clock, I'm done.
Yep.
And
night was
all the
one.
lights off, all the windows closed, all the shutters closed, or windows open and breezy and airy. And do you guys have a preference?
We're actually pretty even on that
I
one.
feel like I've kind of compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I like more air.
You like, sorry.
we both come around to your opinion.
We both come around to agree with that.
Okay, I like the cave. I want the dark. I don't want to see my hand. Kelly wants to hear the birds in the morning. She wants the sun to come up through the windows.
Yeah.
She wants to escape if there's a home invasion. I want to keep the home invader out. It's
Yes.
very, very, very
Yes.
different.
That's funny.
And this can go macro. This can be two nations fighting over a border. Or it can go micro. I want to go to bed at 10. You want to go to bed at midnight.
That's good. Yeah.
The presenting problem is almost always the unmet want. I need to get to my meeting. That's the presenting problem. The underlying problem, or the piling on, which I love that phrase, is the insecurity. Don't you think my schedule is as important as yours?
Yeah.
And almost always we're only fighting about the presenting problem
Wow.
and never fighting about the insecurity underneath it. Well, both of them are important. So
Curt, what's your line? It's not about what it's.
it's never about what it's about.
That's it.
That's actually Ray's line.
Yeah, well,
But I visualize it really well. It's never
Yes.
really about what it's about. Or what I'll say this to the Thrive students especially a lot. Take me one layer beneath that. So, so-and-so, he never cleans up in my host home. It's really driving me crazy. But take it one layer beneath that. I really thought we'd be friends, and we really have not connected, even though we live in the same house.
Yeah.
Take me one layer beneath that. I really don't know if I'm good at making friends. I've struggled making friends my whole life. Take me one layer beneath that. I'm not close to my family.
There it is.
Boom.
Wow.
Now we're talking about something that if we really make progress on it,
Yeah.
it's going to move you forward in so many other areas. So
I think having that awareness and wisdom in the moment to be able to pause. Sometimes some people, the way you're wired, you just got to take a deep breath, literally, and go, this isn't really the main conflict.
Right.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
This isn't as big of a deal as my mind is making it right now.
Yeah, great question to ask yourself is, why am I bringing this much intensity to this conflict?
That's right.
I've asked him before. Sorry, but
No,
mostly
most
it's
of
you,
the time, yeah.
it's you in this category. But I've said, like, why do you think you're responding with this level
Passion.
of energy?
It's a good word.
In relation to the nature of this argument?
Yeah.
Or like, one of the things I even said in that fight, or quarrel,
Conflict.
I said,
Brawl.
I don't want to be upset with you for not being able to read my mind. Which I've said so many times. And still.
Here's one that I've said to Kelly.
So,
I feel like
Can't do it.
I feel like I'm in trouble for something I haven't yet done.
I'm just likely to do.
Thank you for completing that sentence. But I know I'm likely to do this. This is why you're upset with me. I've done this
How
before.
do you keep from getting mad? If it's something you know your partner is going to do, and then you end up being right about them doing it, even though you wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
how do you keep from like that getting mad and then doing it makes you more mad and it's like
You don't.
you're saying,
Prayer and fasting.
Yeah, she's asking, how do you, I mean, your phrase "piling on" is a great phrase to describe
Yeah,
this.
it is.
It's back to the how you handle the familiar fight. When you're already angry because you expect your partner to make this mistake again, and then they prove you right, how do you handle that? My first answer to that, Hannah, it's a great question, is fighting cynicism in a relationship is an ongoing battle. So, and the longer you're in a relationship, you guys were childhood sweethearts.
Yeah.
The longer you're in the relationship, the harder you have to fight cynicism. So you can't set this expectation that I'm going to go into this relationship with this person and we're going to get to a place where they behave and I behave in a way that we're always happy with each other. You have to go, no, my job is I'm going to be fighting cynicism.
That's good.
And the main way that I fight cynicism is I try to value the difference. So almost always the thing that my partner does over and over again that annoys me, there's a corollary action that convicts me.
That's great.
So my wife, I'm trying to think of a really, really good one. My wife really would like us to think things through more. I would like us to be more nimble and flexible. And so that can present to me either as, why are you needing all the information so far in advance always? Or it could present to me as, man, I have a planner in my life and that really helps me.
Yeah.
And how I think about that determines how cynical I get about that.
That's right.
True.
Or how upset about that. Do I value the difference? Do I see the good side of what sometimes presents as a weakness?
That's right. Absolutely. I think, assuming the best in each other is the first thing that came to mind. And when you said valuing the difference, it's not cheesy. It's authentic. Allie has so many wonderful qualities that I was attracted to from the day I met her.
Yeah.
And going back to those things and the way that God has created her, how she betters me as a person, breathes life into me, those are the things that I have to hang on to. But so many times my flesh just wants to focus on a couple of things that are really annoying me or poking at me. But again, they're usually poking an insecurity.
I think my answer would be like to put it in context. So like one of the things that I do that drives Tyler nuts, there are a lot. This would be the way I'm like a dude also. I'm more annoying. Sorry, just kidding. That was like a jab. But anyway, I leave my shoes everywhere. So
You are like a dude.
I don't know why, but as soon as I get in the house,
So
I'm like,
true.
my feet are in
Freedom.
prison, and I need to take them out.
But not just take them out, but in the middle of the floor.
I need to discard them.
Yeah, they're
it's not
just
just
there.
This is so fun.
It's
right
like
there.
I need to abandon these shoes
Yeah.
and just be free. And anyway, I've done that for 7.5 years of our marriage, and also before that. But yesterday came in to the bedroom and they were at least paired.
Yes.
I didn't walk out of them.
Right?
Sometimes
They were
you do,
paired.
yeah.
And he picked one and he goes, "Do you know how hard it is to pick them up and put them in the closet?" And he's like, "Watch." And he does it. And we laughed about it.
Yeah.
And then it was fine and cute. But to me, anyway. But I think the point is, like, once Tyler, I don't mean to make an assumption about what you did after that, but I feel like you're able to put it into context. Like, yes, it's annoying, and yes, she does this every day.
Right.
But in context, like, do I really need to put a lot of value into the fact that she can't learn to put her shoes in the
Yes.
closet?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
in context, there are such bigger things
Yeah.
that I do for you, and vice versa, I
And
think.
part of what you're saying is this whole idea that the fight is really about our significance and insecurities. It is true a lot, and it's especially true for the biggest issues. But sometimes it is what it's about.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about don't leave your shoes on the ground.
Sure.
We'll never be able to get a puppy if you do that. Our daughter will crawl across those shoes. Let's not have that. You know, sometimes it's about what it's
Something,
about.
yeah.
And so you got to, like, I was talking to a couple of guys at the gym, both not churchgoers. They're both living with a gal, and they're like, Pastor Curt. It's so interesting. They're like, Pastor Curt, give me advice. Oh my gosh, give me advice. And I'm like, you guys are fighting about the wrong stuff. You're fighting about all the little stuff. I'm like, all of that little stuff, either give in or settle it. Either come to an understanding, like I like what you guys said, you have an understanding, come to an understanding, or give up on it and just go, she's going to put shoes on the floor, and all the great stuff about her is worth shoes on the floor.
Right.
And I said, because you got to save all of your emotional energy for the stuff that really matters.
Totally.
This is the stuff you got to fight about. So then the next question was, well, what really matters? I said, there's only 4 things that really matter. Number 1 is the bathroom. Number 2 is the bank account. Number 3 is the bedroom. And number 4 is the babies.
Babies.
It has to be.
And babies.
I was going to say birth, but
Bayside.
babies.
For us,
Bayside.
There's a 5th.
There it
No,
is.
I should have. Now I teach this among Christians, and I thought later I should have said Bayside was the 5th, because obviously God supersedes all those,
Right.
and they're still working that
Right.
that issue out. But I'm like the bathroom is, how do we share the chores of life? I can tell you how many couples come into my office and they're at each other's throats, and the reason is one of them saying, "You're not helping out. I am exhausted with your lack of commitment to us in the area of the chores of life." And then, of course, bank account, what can I spend without consulting you? What is our strategy? Are we generous? What are we doing with that? The bedroom, I've never met a single couple that had the exact same desire for intimacy at all times. It just doesn't happen. So you have to, and it's not just about sex, it's about emotional intimacy, it's about cuddling, it's about caring. And then, of course, babies. I used to teach this. I'd say one of you is a disciplinarian, and one of you is, I don't know why I'm pointing here in New York. One of you is a disciplinarian, and one of you is the fun parent. Then after my 3rd child, I realized, oh, that flips depending on the child and depending on the season of the child.
Yeah.
Like I started out as the disciplinarian, she started as the caregiver, and then we flipped after a while, and we flipped in different children. So,
wow. No, that's really interesting. You know what's crazy, Curt, is going back to the shoes for a second. The reality is, shoes were on this side of the bed. On the other side of the bed was the pile of clothes that had been there that I needed to put away for the last 3 days.
You hypocrite.
So really, what it was doing was just exposing the mess that I didn't want to deal with.
Here's the fight that we have in our house all the time. I want to come home to a clean house, you guys. My life is so chaotic. Can we just, all I'm asking, I have 4 adults living with me, 4 of my adult children, just asking everyone put away their thing and everyone do dishes and counters and bathrooms without being asked.
Yeah.
Can we please do that? But Dad, you left this mess out over here. Yeah, that's because your filthiness made me give up. And
no
it's
strength left.
It's this cycle of, I have no strength left.
Sapped all hope.
And it's this cycle of going, I'm not always modeling what I'm asking for. And
No, it's good.
I've got to start with me. I got to start with me, and I've got to be the best example of it in there. Okay, they have. You guys are wondering why I'm looking up there. See, I go over
1
like
minute.
2
They
or
even
3
developed
minutes.
a graphic for
Yes,
you.
no, it's
customized.
giant.
free.
It's flashing.
It's warm.
Hey, Curt.
Just 1 more minute.
It's friendly.
It's so sweet. Please.
I
wrap it
wish
up.
we could talk more about the principles of conflict. If you did not get this message, you get to a Bayside. This is one of the best things you could do for yourself is handle conflict better. It's one of the things we're going to talk about here on the flip side more and more. But if I don't close this episode now, I'm going to get into a conflict with Haley.
It's true.
And she will win that conflict, so I'm going to. Hey, my friend, I want to tell you we're going into a brand new series called Blessed. It's not what you think. What we're going to do is we're taking 5 different characters on a couple of the messages, a group of people in the New Testament that God specifically said over them, I bless you. And we're just going to look biblically at why God blessed them, how God blessed them. Did they play a role in that blessing? How did they walk out that blessing? And you know what? It's not what you think. It's not what you think. The blessing of God is so interesting, so deep, so profound, so not simple, so not blab it and grab it, name it and claim it, or any of that goofiness. It's deeply a part of God's heart to bless. So the next 5 weeks, you don't want to miss a single one of these flip sides or a single one of these weekend services. In fact, would you do me a favor? Like this, subscribe, and pass it on to someone. Let someone else know what we're about to do so they can join in the blessing. And we'll see you next week on the flip side.